WADR.
WADR.
West Africa Democracy Radio.
WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Benin and Abuja. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. This is NEWSLINK. Here are the top stories. Nigeria's main opposition, Atiku Abubakar, criticized the Supreme Court and INEC, alleges endorsement of forgery and electoral fraud.
Any court or tribunal from hiding behind technicality and legal sophistry to affirm electoral haste and undermine the will of the people. Our democracy must mean something. Above all, it must be expressed through free, fair, and transparent elections.
Legal standstill erupts in Guinea as lawyers boycott courts following assault on colleague by court prosecutor. West Africa's Center for Counter-Extremism warns of terrorist exploitation of northern Ghana's escalating ethnic tensions.
At the moment, the story doesn't look good enough in the northern parts of the country. Boko is just part of the mix of security challenges in terms of unresolved chieftains and ethnic conflicts in northern Ghana.
And West African Economic and Monetary Union hailed Senegal's progress on implementation of community reforms. Stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with NEWSLINK.
Thank you for joining us in Liberia, the Gambia, and in Ghana, and of course our viewers on YouTube. The candidate of Nigeria's main opposition, People's Democratic Party (PDP), Atiku Abubakar, has criticized the country's Supreme Court and the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), accusing them of endorsing forgery and electoral fraud. In a media address on Monday, Atiku, speaking for the first time since the recent ruling of the Apex Court confirming Bola Tinubu as the victor of the fiercely contested February 25 presidential election, further accused President Tinubu of identity theft and electoral manipulation.
And any court or tribunal from hiding behind technicality and legal sophistry to affirm electoral haste and undermine the will of the people. Our democracy must mean something. It must be substantive. Above all, it must be expressed through free, fair, and transparent elections that respect the will of the people. Firstly, we must make electoral voting and collation. Members of our National Assembly here present, we must make electronic voting and collation of results mandatory. We don't want to see any human being handling our results, whether at the polling units, at the ward, at the local government. This is the 21st century, and countries less advanced than Nigeria are doing so already. I am absolutely sure that history will vindicate me. One such headline recommendation was the concept of rotational presidency, anchored on the principle of 6 years single term among the 6 geopolitical blocs. Even the notional idea of delineating the country along geopolitical blocs was a creation of the 1995 Constitutional Conference. As for me and my party, this phase of work is done. However, I'm not going to go away.
Nigeria's main opposition, People's Democratic Party candidate Atiku Abubakar, speaking there. Meanwhile, court proceedings and tribunal hearings in Guinea were stalled on Monday due to the absence of lawyers. Since Monday, no cases have been heard from the Manfanko Court to the Dixon Court of First Instance, including the Conakry Court of Appeal. This boycott by the Bar Association follows the assault of one of their colleagues by the prosecutor of the Koya First Instance Court during a court session. Tawfiq Abdul Nasir has more in this report by our Conakry correspondent, General Alpha Ibrahim Al-Baude.
During proceedings at the Manfanko Court of First Instance, the notable absence of lawyers was striking, despite expectations for their presence to argue in 61 distinct cases. Consequently, the defendants at the bar were simply returned to the central prison in Conakry. This scenario was similarly observed at both the Dixon Court of First Instance and the Court of Appeals in Conakry. With all scheduled cases adjourned to a later date, the detainees were brought back to the central facility in Koronti. There were no lawyers present at the court for repression of economic and financial offenses. The 5 cases, including that of Mustafa Jani, who is being prosecuted for alleged embezzlement of public funds, were all postponed to November 13. The call for a boycott of court session nationwide by the Bar Association follows the assault of an attorney by the acting prosecutor of the Koya Court of First Instance a week prior. During a dispute in the courtroom, lawyer Lansine Sila, a member of the Guinean Bar Association, was slapped by the aforementioned prosecutor, leading to this widespread boycott by the legal fraternity.
Tawfiq Abdul Nasir filed that report, filing there by Conakry correspondent Cheno Alpha Ibrahim Al-Baude. Well, let's cross over now to Ghana, where the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism, WASE, has issued a cautionary alert, highlighting the potential for violent extremist factions to manipulate the escalating ethnic tensions in the northern region for acts of terrorist violence. During a press briefing to introduce WASE's latest initiative, the Building Resilience Against Violent Extremism Through Social Cohesion in Northern Ghana BRAVE project, Mutaru Mumuni Mokhtar, the executive director of WASE, indicated that extremist groups possess exploitative capabilities to recruit and carry out attacks by capitalizing on existing vulnerabilities. James Japan report.
The BRAVE initiative focuses on fostering resistance against violent extremism through initiatives that promote social unity across ethnic divides in northern Ghana. The project aims to engage a total of 380 participants, including 230 workshop attendees and 150 individuals participating in dialogues, sensitization, skill enhancement workshops, and interactive discussions are slated to take place in the northern region, Upper East region, and Savannah region as part of this endeavor. Mutaru Mumuni Mokhtar serves as the executive director of WASI, the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism.
At the moment, the story doesn't look good enough in the northern parts of the country. Boko is just part of the mix of security challenges in terms of unresolved chieftains and ethnic conflicts in northern Ghana. We're seeing pervasive situations of youth unemployment and situations what we describe as pervasive insecurity or criminal subculture within the cyberspace. We're seeing huge numbers of vulnerable people that have been created as a result of the lack of job opportunities, and we have drawn a series of activities in the northern part of the country. We're seeking to engage in building people we call peace ambassadors and local community actors, and we follow up with dialogue sessions that are intended at bridging goodwill between and amongst ethnic groups in this part of the country.
A key objective of the project is to empower marginalized communities to actively participate in promoting social integration and harmony. The initiative has received backing from the U.S. Embassy as part of the U.S. Strategy for Preventing Conflict and Promoting Stability, SPCPS.
James Japan reporting there.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. NewsLink continues.
Well, let's cross over now to the Gambia, where youth have initiated discussions on topics directly impacting their lives, marking the commencement of the first regular session of the 9th Youth Parliament for the 2023 legislative year on Monday. The focal point of the debates revolved around the National Development Plan for 2023 to 2027, alongside various other pertinent issues. Let's join our Banjo correspondent Agli Janko with more details.
Ahead of the debate during the first ordinary session of the 9th Youth Parliament, the members unanimously conceded and endorsed a motion emphasizing the government's imperative focus on youth in all facets of recovery, with a specific emphasis on the National Development Plan for 2023-2027. Billy J. Tunkara, the majority leader of the National Assembly of the Gambia, conveyed this message to the young parliamentarians.
Be champions of peace building. Be as orators, advocates in terms of illegal migration. I don't want the discussion to only stay in this House of Chambers, but carry its on to your constituency.
This discussion comes on the heels of a passionate discussion among the youth parliamentarians, delving into pertinent issues that directly impact their demographic.
Now our people are leaving this country, attracted by the sea to live. And what is the problem with this? Why are people leaving? It's because there is no employment opportunity in this country. People are running away.
There are a lot of opportunities coming down from the agricultural point of view and also the blue economy that can be driven from the ozone. But unfortunately, what is currently happening calls for a concern. One of those concerns is the juvenile fishing.
In alignment with this sentiment, the Deputy Speaker of the National Youth Parliament, Degen Job, asserted the necessity for the government to prioritize the needs and concerns of the youth.
If the budget is exhausted, that means the issues of young people will not be addressed at all. So we want to be priority number one. We want to be at least priority number two, so that when issues are put on the table, if our issues are not the first to be addressed, it is at least the second to be addressed.
After the conclusion of the Monday session, the members collectively approved the motion advocating for a constitutional amendment by the government to establish a quota system aimed at enhancing women's involvement in the leadership and governance. The overwhelming majority, comprising 99% of members, voted in favor, while a mere 1% voted against the motion. For NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Sankola Janko reporting from Banjul.
Meanwhile, reports say at least 26 Gambian migrants lost their lives over the weekend when their boat bound for Europe went missing at sea. Another boat also capsized off the coast between Morocco and Spain. The migrants, primarily hailing from the Gambian villages of Bara, Essa and Kanuma in the lower Niumi district, faced this devastating fate during their perilous journey across the Atlantic Ocean. This harrowing incident occurred as two migrant boats from Niumi deviated from their intended route to Europe. It's worth noting that the wooden fishing boat was initially carrying 89 individuals before it embarked on its journey to Europe. In a related tragedy, more than 70 people were missing on Monday after a boat capsized in northern Nigeria, according to authorities who deplored the frequent deadly boat accidents in the country. Nigeria's National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, said the boat was carrying traders returning from a fish market in Taraba State's Adokado district late Saturday when it capsized on the Benue River, which is one of Nigeria's largest. Francis Boniface completes the story.
The boat, which took off from Mayoranowa Market in Ardokola Council, was said to have been heading to Karim Lamido, a nearby council, when it capsized on reaching Binari Village waterway. Head of NEMA, Ladan Ayuba, said that more than 100 passengers were on board and 14 were rescued, while 17 bodies have been recovered and 73 are still missing. Taraba Governor Agbuke Fast called the accident a monumental tragedy and ordered the use of life jackets for boat passengers. Boat disasters are common in remote communities across the West African nation. This is the third involving more than 100 passengers in just 4 months. Most are attributed to overloading. Taraba police spokesperson Usman Abdullahi said authorities were investigating the cause of this accident, while locals and fishermen were helping rescue agencies. Abdullahi said he feared that the operation could last for days because the river is flowing at its highest level. The command said the search to rescue those alive and recover the corpses of the drowned passengers is still ongoing. A similar incident occurred in the country's northern Kebbi state in May 2021, when more than 100 people were missing and feared dead after a boat with more than 165 passengers, including women and children, broke up and sank as it was traveling.
Francis Boniface reporting there. You're listening to NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar and on our partner stations across the sub-region. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Nigeria's main opposition, Atiku Abubakar, criticized the Supreme Court and INEC, alleges endorsement of forgery and electoral fraud. Legal standstill erupts in Guinea as lawyers boycott courts following assault on colleague by court prosecutor. West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism warns of terrorist exploitation of northern Ghana's escalating ethnic tensions. And still ahead, West African Economic and Monetary Union hails Senegal's progress on implementation of community reforms. We do have our guest interview segment and sports news. Please stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
Don't forget, we are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. Cote d'Ivoire is set to receive 30 billion CFA francs through the International Finance Corporation (IFC) in a pioneering securitization of an electricity program. The Electricity for All program, announced by the IFC on Monday, seeks to amplify electricity access for hundreds of thousands of low-income households in the nation. Ogeberika completes the story.
The funds generated from this bond, marking the first social bond issuance in the energy sector within the West African Economic and Monetary Union (UEMOA), are intended to facilitate innovative financing for connecting approximately 800,000 low-income households to the national power grid. Over the course of 4 years, the program aims to significantly boost the service rate, particularly the number of electricity subscribers, by more than 13% in comparison to the total number of households in the country. Social bonds represent financial instruments utilized for the funding or refinancing of social projects designed to address prevalent issues and provide support to the most vulnerable segment of society. IFC, acting as the principal investor, plans to allocate up to 30 billion CFA francs towards the bond, accounting for half of the total issuance of 60 billion CFA francs. The Emerging Africa Infrastructure Fund, EAIF, a member of the Private Infrastructure Development Group, PIDG, is expected to secure a significant stake in the bond, which will be issued through a regulated securitization entity. This groundbreaking transaction involves a tranche with a maturity of 15 years, representing the longest duration for a securitization transaction within the region.
Ogeberika reporting that. Well, let's talk more figures now. A recent assessment conducted by the West African Economic and Monetary Union (WEMU) indicates that Senegal has made notable advancements in various aspects, as reported by Ange Constantine Mankabou, the coordinator of the General Directorate of the Financial Sector. Now, according to the report, Senegal in 2022 achieved an average implementation rate of 74.5% for community reforms within WEMU, slightly down from 76.1% in 2021, representing a marginal decrease of 1.6 percentage point. As Donald Mendy reports, this assessment encompassed 127 reforms and 9 projects.
The UEMOA Commission is to review 131 community regulations alongside 7 projects this year. The revision of the reform evaluation involved the inclusion of 5 tests covering multilateral surveillance, transportation, higher education, health, and culture. Decision number 13, which established the Conference of Orders of Architects of the UEMOA, will be withdrawn. Regarding the projects, 2 completed projects will be removed from consideration, while a new transportation project will be introduced for assessment. According to Constantin Mankabou, the coordinator of the General Director of the Financial Sector, the 9th review is scheduled to take place from October 30th to November 2nd, 2023 in Dakar is organized by Community Organization Commission. The primary aim of this review is to assess the accomplishments made and identify the challenges encountered during the implementation of the regulations. The ultimate goal is to propose effective solutions that can enhance the competitiveness of the member economies and ensure that the people of the Union reap the benefit of regional integration. The annual assessment of community reforms, policies, programs, and projects within UEMOA was established by the Additional Act of the Conference of Heads of State and Government on October 24, 2013. The primary objective of this initiative is to expedite the implementation of community reforms, policies, programs, and projects within the Union, thereby fostering the deepening of regional integration.
Sancton Amendi reporting there.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, our guest interview draws back to our earlier report on the criticism by Atiku Abubakar, the candidate of the main opposition People's Democratic Party of Nigeria, on the ruling of the February 25 presidential election by the Supreme Court of the country. Atiku had blamed also the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) for gross electoral malpractice and terms the ruling as a signature on approval of electoral fraud. In this interview, our guest Charles Ogwa analyzes the situation individually and observantly on whether the call by this opposition candidate for an overturn of the ruling is justified. He also shares an opinion on other major issues concerning reforms that he projects Nigerians hope to realize with INEC and the judiciary settlement of electoral reforms the way forward.
I think it's obvious that money changed hand. Why did I say so? There is a rule, a constitution in Nigeria that if somebody is found guilty of forgery, the person forfeit the office. It happened before in the House of Representatives when the Speaker, Sanusi Ibrahim, was found out to have forged a certificate from Toronto University. He was made to forfeit their office. But I am not speaking as an expert. Some experts were of the opinion that Atiku did not, follow the technicality of presenting his case. I don't know how true that is. But having proved that the certificate from Chicago University was forged, I think as a person, that is enough for them to have upheld the request of Atiku, but they know better. That is what I think to that.
So I'm asking that based on what you've said, is this enough justification for the opposition to call for an overturn of the rule?
Yes, I would say yes and no. And I want to tell you why I'm saying yes and why I'm saying no. In the first place, I was there during the election. I was actively involved, and I saw a lot of panky-hanky. A lot of people, we are not allowed to vote in Nigeria. And it's not just one party issue. It also affected some other party, depending on the location where you are operating from. In Lagos, I realized that a lot of people from Labour and PDP, we are not allowed to vote. I witnessed, I saw. The security personnel, we are not there. And it was also obvious that the INEC chairman at the time visited the NAM president. But whatever they discuss, we did not. All these things are contrary to the rules and regulation of the game. You don't, side a party, you don't side an individual. And even if you have that likeness, you keep it to yourself. And I am saying no because the issue of election malpractice in Nigeria cut across parties. So I didn't know exactly how it affected some other places, but from where I covered, it was quite obvious. Even the security personnel did not help matters. So having looked at that, if it's to be taken, I think they need to, overturn the election. It was not a true reflection of people's voting. That is the truth. In every sincere Nigeria will tell you that the outcome of the election was not a true reflection of what happened. And if we truly say we are practicing democracy, it should be the people that we choose who will lead them. And like I said before, I would not rule out that it also happened in other parties. So the level is what I cannot determine. It's the authorities that know better. But I think it is enough for them to call for, overturn of the outcome of the election. Yeah.
What reform would Nigerians hope to see, especially within the INEC and the judiciary as a whole?
What we are praying for, because I would say is what we are praying for, is not that we are expecting it. It is an individual, personal, and sincere reform. Like I started earlier, it was obvious that the INEC chairman, Yakubu, betrayed Nigerians, is my own view, in the sense that he shouldn't have, for whatever reason, visited the now incumbent president, even before announcing the election. So if we can have leaders who are sincere to themselves, that will be the starting point. It's not even the constitution or whatever. People, even the judiciary, they are not following what is there. They turn it to suit what they want. Then other ones, like you mentioned, the judiciary are just, they are playing to the executive, and that is a reform I think judiciary should be independent of themselves. The legislature should be independent of themselves. The executive should be independent of themselves. But it's not playing out in Nigeria, from my own understanding. And it is a reform. It's not just the issue of calling for a reform that at the end of the day, somebody will kill it. It is something that individually we need to, brace up and say, yes, we are one nation if we accept to be one. And if we choose not to be one, why don't we go our own different way?
Charles Ogwa is an independent analyst and also an election observer. And here is Sport News with Sankle Janko.
Hello out there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Lionel Messi has clinched his 8th Ballon d'Or title, winning the men's award at the 2023 ceremony, following his outstanding season leading Argentina to World Cup glory. Before moving to Inter Miami in the summer, the 36-year-old mastermind Argentina's victory in Qatar, scoring twice during the final, while also finding the back of the net during a penalty shootout to help the team defeat 2018 winners France. The four-time Champions League winner beat some tough competition to claim the first place, with Erling Haaland coming in second, Kylian Mbappe coming in third, and Kevin De Bruyne ranking fourth. Aitana Bonmati, meanwhile, claimed the women's Ballon d'Or after helping to guide Spain to World Cup glory in the summer, where she was named the player of the tournament after her epic performances. The Barcelona midfielder also helped her club side clinch their fourth successive Liga F title, while also winning the Women's Champions League this year, their second European title in the last 3 seasons. Brazil winger Vinicius Jr. was also presented with the Socrates Award in recognition of the work he has done away from football pitch in fighting against racism. Aston Villa goalkeeper Emiliano Martinez, who was instrumental in Argentina's road to winning the 2022 World Cup, was presented with the Yasin Award, the best goalkeeper award, of course. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And we've come to the end of this edition of NewsLink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Christian Mukudi and Mustafa Sek for the technical assistance. Let's continue the conversation on our social media platforms: X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to NewsLink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0, and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County. For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.
We hope that West Africa Democracy Radio will help us to spread all this information all around the ECOWAS countries.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Breast cancer awareness is not just a month. Fighting breast cancer takes everyone. Join in the fight against breast cancer.